The first of which is a new Tomb Raider game was announced, being developed by Crystal Dynamics. Now, this was revealed during the Unreal Engine 5 showcase, like whatever that was. I think there's some sort of like big game, not GDC, but something like GDC, some game developer type conference that was going on. And so Epic did like an Unreal Engine 5 showcase. I didn't watch it, to be honest, but I did catch this announcement because it's kind of made the rounds in terms of the video game world. And from that, Crystal Dynamics came out and said, hey, we're working on a new Tomb Raider game. As well as they also showed a bunch of other upcoming games that are using the Unreal Engine 5. So things like Hellblade 2, Ark 2, Survival Evolved, or whatever, like that, the sequel to that game. And a couple others, as well as like whatever the next Gears of War game is using Unreal Engine 5. Not a surprise there because they started at Epic in the original Gears of War with Cliff Bleszinski. Excuse me, I keep burping into the microphone. But other than that, they just said that the new Tomb Raider game just started development. No real details were provided, so they had like no concept arts they were showing, no images, just nothing. It was literally just a straight up announcement. So nothing really to go off of, nothing really to ride home about or like be super pumped and hyped about. But I gotta say, it's nice to see Crystal Dynamics go back to the Tomb Raider games. I think that's more of what they're better at because if you think about it, like they did the 3 Tomb Raider reboot games. What is it? Obviously, Tomb Raider 2013, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and then Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I think that's the order that they go in. And I think those are all good games. I think the 2013 reboot is the best out of the 3, in my opinion. Like I liked that one the most. I don't know. I genuinely enjoyed that game, and I actually played it on PS3 back in the day when it came out. But to see them go from that, like traditional, third-person action adventure games, linear though the latter ones started to open up a bit, not fully open world by any means, but kind of bigger open areas, maybe little side quests, especially in the last game, or the most recent one, I should say. To go from that to Avengers, to try to take on a live service model, a live service game, albeit you could argue that, again, from the single player perspective, that is more of like what they're capable of, right? That third person action adventure kind of narrative driven story game, which makes sense. But all the live service stuff, the multiplayer stuff, just did not make sense to have Crystal Dynamics do. So it's nice to see them go back to Tomb Raider. And one of the interesting things that kind of came about this is I was kind of digging around articles, and this actually came from Polygon of all places. So every now and then, Polygon is mostly just trash reporting, but every now and then they got some good gems, and I stumbled across this. And they pointed out that Jeff Ross, who is formerly of Bend Studios, a first-party PlayStation team, that's the team that made Days Gone, that PS4 exclusive, if you all remember that, he announced that he's now over at Crystal Dynamics and working as the game's director for this new Tomb Raider game. So very interesting that. And I think what's interesting about that is because it'll be interesting to see his influence on that, because Days Gone, whether you like it or not, is narratively interesting, and I think there's a lot of good there. For me, I got the game when it came out, and I played it for a little bit. Wasn't really feeling it, mostly because of the story's pacing. I think that's the game's biggest and most glaring weakness is the game's story pacing. It's just atrocious. I did not like it, so it really put me off at first, and so I put it down for a bit. I did eventually come back to Days Gone and plowed through the rest of the game and got quite a few of the trophies too. Like I got to the point where I was like, I'm really enjoying kind of like doing the checkbox things, like going around collectibles, finding things. And while I didn't get the platinum, I got quite a few trophies, and I was pretty satisfied with my completion of that game. And by the end of it, I looking back, I do think it's a good game. I think it's a little underrated, if I'm being honest. Though I understand the criticisms. I do think it's underrated. I do think it's a good game. And especially with the zombie mechanics and kind of the open world. And personally, one of the things I really liked about it is that it took place in Oregon. You know, that's where I'm, Pacific Northwest here in Oregon. It's cool to see that represented in video games, and makes sense because Sony Bend is from Oregon. So I guess I'm a little biased in that degree, but nonetheless, I think that, you know, Days Gone kind of got shit on for maybe more than it needed to be. But knowing what was done in that game, and maybe seeing what, from maybe either a narrative perspective or maybe a gameplay perspective, that could be brought over into a new Tomb Raider game, I think is exciting. So I think this little tidbit of information, Jeff Ross going over to Crystal Dynamics, is a good thing. And for me, I mentioned this, but the newest Tomb Raider game, what is it? I think Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I didn't really enjoy that much. And I don't know, the story didn't capture me. The kind of open world, and like, well, not fully open world, but more open, and then there's side quests and stuff like that. It just, I don't know, it didn't really feel like it was that great of a game. I feel like maybe it was a little overrated compared to the others, but nonetheless, so it's nice to see them go back. I hope they kind of go back to the roots of like the 2013 Tomb Raider, and kind of get away from this kind of, I guess, like father drama, and like keep it, you know, I don't really want the side quests. I want a good, interesting story. I want more exploration. Like, let's get back to kind of classic Tomb Raider a little bit, like reel it in. That would be ideal. And we'll see what Jeff Ross brings to the table. So I don't know. I'm excited, but it's going to be, you know, probably 3 years before we see anything or hear anything more of this game, because it sounds like it's just started development. So nothing to write home about. But nonetheless, I do want to point it out because it's nice to see Crystal Dynamics moving on from Avengers into what I think is something they're better suited at. Thanks for tuning into this clip from the Gamecite Chronicles podcast. You can tune in new episodes every week, Mondays at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Be sure to drop a like, subscribe, and leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform. And until next time, I'm Bonfire, and I will see you online.